what's your biggest headline from the game?
Eagles defense suffocates the Chiefs.
Oh.
It was, and we've gone about it all morning long. Jalen Hurts is very deserving. But that performance that they put on last night through 3 quarters against the Chiefs, there's not an amount of money that I could have bet that said this would have been the outcome. Now, I did have the Eagles to win, but not like this. This was total domination, and you don't see this. I don't know if you've seen a game like this all year long where a team physically, emotional, psychologically dominated a team like the Chiefs got dominated last night. You're talking about a historically great quarterback, one of the all-time great head coaches, and we know what Spags does defensively, and it wasn't even close. That performance, and what Jalen Hurts said, Stephen A., he said he built the last. They're going to be here for a minute now. They're going to be here for a minute because they got Jalen Hurts on an easy contract.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
They got Mitchell is a rookie. Carter is a rookie. They got an offensive line sewn up for the foreseeable future. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, they signed Saquon. They're going to be here for a minute. Barring injury, I'm not surprised if Eagles don't repeat what we just saw.
To that sentiment, before you jump in, we're going to talk about dynasty a little later in the show, both the Kansas City Chiefs and the Eagles and where they're headed. Stephen A.?
Let me tell you something right now. This was an annihilation. It was a beatdown. Good Lord have mercy. It almost got to a point where a mercy rule should have been invoked. They were down 34-0. And I want to put it in its proper perspective on this level, all right, guys? The Eagles didn't pass midfield until the last few minutes of the third quarter. Their first 9 drives into the third quarter, 6 punts, 2 interceptions, 1 turnover on downs. 12 of Kansas City's 13 offensive drives went for 5 plays or fewer. No drive exceeded 4 plays in the first half. Wow. Okay? Obviously, Mahomes was sacked a career high 6 times, all right? Philly won the battle of possession. And then we got to look at this. Patrick Mahomes in this regard. 2 Super Bowl losses have been by a combined 40 points. And only he and John Elway, they're the only quarterbacks in the history of football who have lost 2 starts by 18 or more points. Yeah. Now we got to associate this stuff which is unthinkable. We never thought we'd associate anything of this ilk to Patrick Mahomes, but that's how bad it is. And I know the Eagles defense was elite, DeJean and his pick 6 and everything. I get that part, but Sweat and those brothers on that defensive front 4, I mean, they just straight up punked and beat down the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs, as Dan Orlovsky pointed out, you talked about it being when they were down 17-0. I saw it in the first 5 minutes. They were demoralized. They were like, I don't know what we can be able to do with this. Yeah. It was bad. It was that bad.
RC?
Yeah, I think my headline would be Nick Sirianni did the job the best that he could while it was still his job. We talked, the media, maybe never in the building, about was Nick Sirianni the right coach for the Philadelphia Eagles? We would look at some of his sideline antics and critique him and speak of some of the ways it didn't seem his behavior was becoming of a head coach. There was so much tension, it seemed, in the offseason between him and his quarterback. We watched defensive line coaches stand up in front of him in between he and Jalen Carter when they were having heated arguments. And the man just kept coaching. And even though you have to give credit to Vic Fangio, you have to give credit to Kellen Moore, we have to give credit to Nick Sirianni, to his leadership, to continuing to get these guys to play with all-out effort each and every snap. I think there are certain teams that we give credit to the head coach, and then there are other teams that our perception of the head coach keeps us from being able to say, job well done. And so for me, for Nick Sirianni, he believed in who he was. He believed in his leadership. I believed he learned and adjusted as the season went on. And because of that, he's been rewarded with the Lombardi Trophy. This dude's been to 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years. And I think we speak of most coaches who accomplish those goals and accomplish or have those achievements in a very different way than we do Nick Sirianni. So all credit to him and the way that he led this team this year.
Yeah, my biggest headline is the Eagles right now are the best organization in football.
Yeah.
And that goes from top down. Inarguably, best general manager in football right now, and Howie Roseman. We've talked about it all week. His last 4 drafts, the first 3 round picks that he's had, all 12 of them are impactful players. He signs Carson Wentz 5 or 6 years ago to a massive contract. Within a year, decided, nope, we're going to move on from you, draft Jalen Hurts, and then trade. But this is the best organization in football. The general manager is as good as anybody in the league. RC, you just talked about the head coach. 2 quick stories I'll share about it. I was super hard on Nick Sirianni to start this season. I had a coach who's with the Eagles, who I have a past with, reach out to me and say, I think you're being a little bit aggressive. I think the rhetoric is too much. And I said, what do you mean? He said, Dan, he's my favorite coach I've ever worked for. And that spoke volumes to me. And then, and I hope it's okay that I'm sharing this, I saw Connor Barwin yesterday before the game, who's an ex-NFL player, great defensive end. He's with the Eagles right now, and I was talking with him about Nick Sirianni, and he said he has grown and developed so much through this year, and he never once was somebody that he's not. He never once changed. And I think totally agree with you, RC, that this dude is a stud. In like a year, he's gone from like a question mark to a stud as a head coach. And I think it's the next dynasty in the NFL. The roster is awesome. Jalen's cheap. And this is a team that might go on a 2 or 3 year run, Super Bowl winning.
The Eagles won the title, but they aren't the favorites to win next year's Super Bowl. The Chiefs and Ravens are co-favorites, are plus 65, while the Eagles, Lions, and Bills are all 7-1. Shannon, 650, excuse me. Is this the start of an Eagles dynasty?
They are built. They're built to last. We kind of touched on it a little bit. You look at, they got Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown, and the top offensive linemen all signed, sealed, and delivered for the foreseeable future. You look at Jalen Carter still on a rookie contract, Mitchell on a rookie contract, Dijon on a rookie contract, Jordan Davis on a rookie contract. Now, obviously, you are not going to be able to keep everybody. Right. Zach Bryan, what are you going to do with him next year? But I do believe the next 2 to 3 years, would I be surprised to see the Eagles in two Super Bowls, possibly winning one? Absolutely not. I do believe they're built to last, and I'm not going to be shocked if they own the NFC, kind of like what the Chiefs have done in the AFC. Maybe to not that extent, maybe not 4 Super Bowls in 6 years, but I can see them being in another 1 or 2 of them.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I got them winning it again next year. They're my favorites to win it next year. That's number 1. Number 2, let's look at certain things. We've seen what Washington can be.
Yes.
But that's the good and the bad. We saw them throughout the season, and then we saw them in the NFC Championship game. That was a different level. We saw Detroit lose both coordinators. What are they going to be like?
Yes.
We look at watch out for the Rams, though, from this perspective. What if they get a Myles Garrett? Doubt they will, but what if they do? It could be interesting.
You hear about with Stafford. Now,
Yes. Yeah. So, Eagles definitely. Got to give the Eagles the edge right now.
Absolutely. I think they're built to last. And I mentioned this last night. Stephen A., you look at the way they're constructed. You look at Howie Roseman. He's the guy you must trust. You know he's not going to stand pat. Could I see? But the question is, okay, get a Myles Garrett. I wouldn't go get a Myles Garrett because you're going to have to give up probably one of your young pieces. Right. Maybe a couple of your young pieces and some draft picks, which we're not going to hurt you with the draft picks, Stephen A., because I think I'm going to be picking 29, 30, 31. Right. Who are we going to get that can be Myles Garrett? But you look at them, Jalen Hurts, Saquon, all of these guys on the contract. They got contract prosperity for the next 2 to 3 years.
100%.
Don't mess with it.